Step into the eerie Hollywood Tower Hotel, where Miss Marple unravels a chilling mystery. In 1939, 5 people vanished in a lightning-struck elevator. Now, ghostly screams, moving objects, and a diary that writes itself haunt the halls. Is it a curse or a greedy plot? Join Miss Marple as she exposes lies, uncovers a deadly 1939 secret, and outwits a schemer to save the hotel.
Chapter 1. The Invitation to Shadows. The morning sun peeked through the lace curtains of Miss Jane Marple's cottage in St. Mary Mead. It was a quiet village, where the loudest noise was the chatter of sparrows or Mrs. Price gossiping about her neighbor's new hat. Miss Marple sat in her favorite armchair, her knitting needles clicking softly. A ball of soft gray wool rolled in her lap, and a cup of tea steamed on the table beside her. She was thinking about her roses, how they needed pruning, when the postman's knock broke her thoughts. "Morning, Miss Marple," called young Tommy, the postman, as he slid a single letter through the slot. The envelope landed on the mat with a soft thud. It wasn't often she got letters these days, not since her nephew Raymond started sending those newfangled emails. Curious, she set her knitting aside and shuffled to the door in her sensible shoes. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, and smelled faintly of old paper. Her name was written in elegant, looping ink, Miss Jane Marple, St. Mary Mead. No return address, but the postmark said, California. California? She raised an eyebrow. That was a long way from her quiet village. She opened the letter carefully, her fingers steady despite her age. Inside was a single sheet, folded neatly, and a small photograph tucked inside. The letter was from Harold Grayson, a name that sparked a memory like a match in the dark. Harold, the charming actor she'd met years ago at a charity tea in London. He'd been all smiles and stories back then, telling tales of Hollywood's golden days. They'd kept in touch for a while, but it had been ages since she'd heard from him. She adjusted her glasses and read, "Dear Miss Marple, I hope this finds you well in your peaceful village. I'm writing from California, where I've settled after my acting days. I need your help, your sharp mind, to be exact. There's a mystery here at the Hollywood Tower Hotel, a place I'm sure you've never heard of, but it's got a story darker than any stage play. The hotel's been closed since 1939, when a terrible accident happened. A lightning storm hit, and an elevator fell, carrying 5 people. Poof! Gone, like they vanished into thin air. No bodies, no trace. The place has been empty since, but now a company wants to fix it up, make it shine again. Problem is, strange things are happening. Workers hear voices, laughing, crying, even screams. Objects move on their own, and someone found a diary in the lobby that writes itself, new words appearing like a ghost is holding the pen. I'm on the board for the renovation, but I'm worried. This feels like a folly, a big mistake. The hotel's got secrets, and I think you're the only one who can unravel them. I've enclosed a train ticket to California. Please come, Jane. I'll meet you at the station. Yours sincerely, Harold Grayson." Miss Marple set the letter down and picked up the photograph. It showed a grand hotel, all tall and fancy, with towers like a castle, but its windows were dark and the paint was peeling like a face that hadn't smiled in years. The Hollywood Tower Hotel. She'd never heard of it, but something about the name sent a shiver down her spine. Not fear, mind you, but the tickle of a puzzle waiting to be solved. She sipped her tea, now lukewarm, and thought. Harold's letter sounded urgent, but it wasn't just that. It was the way he wrote folly, like he knew something was wrong, deep in his bones. Miss Marple had seen folly before, people making foolish choices, thinking they could outsmart fate. In St. Mary Mead, it was usually small things, a farmer hiding stolen sheep or a shopkeeper fudging his books. But this was bigger, stranger, like a village gossip stretched across an ocean. She looked at her knitting, half a scarf, and smiled. "Well," she said to the empty room, "a change of scenery might do me good." Her mind was already turning, like the pages of a book she hadn't read yet. Ghosts? Vanishing people? A diary that wrote itself? She didn't believe in ghosts. Not really. People were the ones who made shadows dance, not spirits. And people, she knew, always left clues. By noon, she'd packed a small suitcase, just one, because Miss Marple traveled light. A few dresses, her knitting, a notebook, and her favorite teacup wrapped in a shawl. She left a note for her maid, Lily, to water the roses and feed the stray cat that visited her garden. Then she called a taxi to the station. The driver, a chatty man with a mustache, tried to talk about the weather, but Miss Marple was too busy thinking. 5 people, gone in a flash. A hotel that scared workers away. And Harold, who wasn't the type to panic, sounding scared. The station was quiet, just a few people waiting for the afternoon express. Miss Marple bought a newspaper to pass the time, but her eyes kept drifting to Harold's letter tucked in her bandbag. She thought of St. Mary Mead, where mysteries hid in teacups and garden chats. This Hollywood Tower hotel sounded like a stage, and she was about to walk onto it. She wasn't nervous, she never was, but she felt that familiar spark, the one that came when a puzzle called her name. The train to London was the first leg of her journey, where she'd catch a bigger one across the sea. As the countryside rolled by, green fields and sleepy villages, she let her mind wander. Harold had mentioned 1939, a lightning storm, an elevator, 5 people. She pictured them, maybe a businessman, a young couple, a hotel worker, and who else? An actress, perhaps, because Harold was an actor, and actors loved drama. She smiled to herself. People always thought mysteries were about big things, murder, money, ghosts. But Miss Marple knew better. Mysteries started small, with a look, a word, a lie someone thought no one would notice. In London, she boarded the ship to America, a grand thing, all shiny decks and bustling stewards. She spent the days reading, knitting, and chatting with passengers. One young woman, a teacher, asked why an older lady was traveling so far alone. Miss Marple just smiled and said, "To visit an old friend." No need to mention mysteries. People always got the wrong idea, thinking it was all danger and chases. For her, it was just thinking, watching, listening. The ship docked in New York, and another train waited to carry her west. America was louder than England, all horns and hurry, but Miss Marple stayed calm. She watched people, porters, travelers, a man who kept checking his watch like he was hiding something. She made a note in her book. Man in gray suit, nervous, train station, fidgety hands. Probably nothing, but she noticed everything. The train to California was long, cutting through mountains and deserts. Miss Marple read Harold's letter again, her eyes lingering on diary that writes itself. That was odd, even for a mystery. She didn't believe in magic, but she knew tricks, mirrors, wires, clever hands. Someone wanted the hotel to stay closed, maybe, or wanted to scare people away. But why? Money, most likely, or love, or pride. She'd find out soon. When the train pulled in to California, the air was warm, heavy with the scent of dust and flowers. Harold was waiting at the station, older now, his hair white, but his smile still bright. "Jane," he called, waving, "you haven't changed a bit." She chuckled. "Oh, Harold, flattery won't solve your mystery." He laughed, but his eyes were worried, like a man who'd seen something he couldn't explain. He took her suitcase and led her to a car, an old thing that rattled but ran. As they drove, he told her more about the Hollywood Tower Hotel. It was the place to be back in the day, he said, steering through busy streets. Movie stars, singers, the rich and famous. Then the accident happened. 1939, Halloween night. Lightning hit the elevator, and those 5 people, gone. No wreckage, no bodies, just stories. People say the hotel is cursed. And now? Oh, Harold sighed. The company wants to reopen it. Big plans, new rooms, restaurants, the works. But the workers are spooked. Tools go missing, lights flicker. And that diary, Jane, it's creepy. New pages appear, written in old-fashioned ink, talking about the accident like it's happening now. She patted him on the arm. Sounds like someone's making trouble. People, Harold, not ghosts. He smiled, but it was weak. I hope you're right. They reached the hotel at dusk. It loomed against the sky, tall and gray, its towers like fingers reaching for the stars. The windows were dark, some cracked, and ivy clung to the walls like it was trying to pull the place down. Miss Marple stepped out of the car, her knitting bag over her shoulder. The air felt heavy, not just with heat, but with something else.
Chapter 2. The Echoes of the Fallen Elevator. Miss Jane Marple woke to the sound of birds outside her window, a faint chirping that felt out of place in the heavy air of the Hollywood Tower Hotel. Her room was small, with faded wallpaper and a creaky bed, but she'd slept well enough. Mysteries, she found, were better tackled after a good rest. She dressed in her usual sensible skirt and cardigan, pinned her gray hair neatly, and tucked her knitting into her bag. The diary from the lobby was on her mind, those strange words, fresh ink on old pages. She didn't believe in ghosts, but she believed in tricks, and tricks always had a purpose. Downstairs, the lobby was quiet, the morning light filtering through dusty windows. Tom, the nervous caretaker, was sweeping the marble floor, his broom scratching like a whisper. He looked up as she approached, his eyes tired. "Morning, ma'am," he said, his voice low. "Sleep okay?" "Well enough, thank you," Miss Marple replied, her smile kind but sharp. "I'd like to see the elevator, Tom, the one from the accident." Tom's broom stopped mid-sweep. "It's, not a nice place, ma'am. Down in the basement. Nobody likes going there." She nodded, unfazed. "All the same, I'd like to see it." Tom sighed and led her to a heavy door behind the lobby desk. It groaned as he pushed it open, revealing a dark staircase. The air grew colder as they descended, smelling of rust and damp stone. At the bottom, a wide room opened up, lit by a single flickering bulb. In the center was the elevator, or what was left of it. The metal cage was twisted, its doors bent like a crushed tin can. Ropes and gears lay scattered, covered in dust. A faint scorch mark ran up one wall, black and jagged, like a scar from the lightning strike Harold had mentioned. Miss Marple stepped closer, her shoes clicking on the concrete. "This is where it happened?" she asked, her voice steady. Tom nodded, staying back. "Halloween, 1939. Lightning hit the hotel. The elevator was full. 5 people. They were gone when the dust settled. No bodies, no nothing. Just gone." She tilted her head, studying the wreckage. "And the hotel closed after?" "Yep. Too many stories. People said it was cursed. Now, with the renovation, it's like the place is waking up, angry." Miss Marple didn't answer right away. She walked around the elevator, her eyes catching small details, a broken gear, a piece of rope that looked newer than the rest. She thought of St. Mary Mead, where a broken fence
or a missing pie could tell a whole story. This place was bigger, but the rules were the same. People made messes, and messes left clues. Back upstairs, she found Harold in the lobby, talking to a young man in overalls, a worker from the renovation team. Harold waved her over. "Jane, this is Eddie. He's been helping with the repairs." Eddie was broad-shouldered, with a nervous grin. "Heard you're here to figure out the weird stuff, ma'am. Good luck. This place gives me the creeps." "Tell me about it, Eddie," Miss Marple said, settling into a dusty chair. She pulled out her knitting, her needles clicking softly. People talked more when she looked busy, harmless. Eddie glanced at Harold, then spoke. "Last week, I was fixing a window upstairs, heard a laugh, clear as day, like a kid. Turned around, nobody there. Then, yesterday, I'm in the hallway, and a chair slides across the floor, on its own. I swear, ma'am, I ain't crazy." "I believe you, Eddie," Miss Marple nodded, her eyes on her knitting. "Anything else?" He hesitated. "Yeah, last night, I heard a scream. Sounded like a girl coming from the elevator shaft. I didn't stick around to check." Tom, still nearby, spoke up. "It's not just Eddie. Other workers heard things too. And that diary? New pages keep showing up. I locked it in a drawer, but it was back on the desk this morning." Miss Marple's needles paused. "Show me." Tom fetched the diary from the lobby desk. The leather cover was worn, but the pages inside gleamed under the light. She opened to the latest entry, written in that same neat, old-fashioned script. "The storm is close. They'll pay for what they did." The ink looked wet, like it had been written minutes ago. "Interesting," she said, closing the book. "Very interesting." That afternoon she explored the hotel, her steps slow but sure. The hallways were long, lined with faded wallpaper and locked doors. She found a library, its shelves packed with moldy books. One caught her eye, a history of Hollywood from the 1930s. She sat at a table, dust puffing around her, and read. The book mentioned the Tower Hotel, calling it a jewel of the Golden Age until the tragedy. Among the 5 victims was Clara Beaumont, a famous actress known for her wild parties and reckless ways. The papers called her death a folly, blaming her for being in the elevator during the storm as if she'd tempted fate. She closed the book, thinking. Clara Beaumont. A name like that carried weight. Like Mrs. Harris back in St. Mary Mead, who thought she could charm anyone, but ended up alone. People like Clara left stories behind, and stories left clues. She made a note. Clara Beaumont, actress. Folly? That night the hotel felt alive in a way it hadn't during the day. The wind rattled the windows and the floors creaked like footsteps. Miss Marple was in her room, knitting by lamplight, when she heard it, a laugh, soft and high, like a child. Then a sob, faint but clear. She set her knitting down and opened her door, peering into the dark hallway. Nothing, but the air felt heavy, like someone was watching. She didn't go back to bed. Instead, she slipped on her shoes and went downstairs, her flashlight cutting through the gloom. The lobby was empty, the diary still on the desk. She was about to turn away when a crash echoed from the basement. Her heart didn't race, she was too old for that, but her mind sharpened. She moved toward the basement door, slow and steady. At the bottom of the stairs, she found Eddie, sprawled on the floor near the elevator, a wrench beside him. He was groaning, clutching his arm. "Fell. Something pushed me," he muttered. Miss Marple helped him sit up, her eyes scanning the room. The elevator looked the same, but a rope was swaying slightly, like it had been touched. "Pushed, you say?" she asked, her voice calm. "Yeah, it felt like a hand on my back. I was checking the gears, and bam! She nodded, helping him to his feet. Go rest, Eddie. I'll look into this. As he limped away, Miss Marple stood alone in the basement. The air was still, but the scorch mark on the wall seemed darker, sharper. She didn't believe in ghosts, but she knew fear, and fear made people do strange things. Someone was playing tricks, moving chairs, writing in diaries, pushing workers. But why? To stop the renovation? To hide something older from 1939? She thought of Clara Beaumont again, the actress with her Folly. In St. Mary Mead, Folly was a neighbor spending too much on a new car. Here it felt bigger, heavier, like a secret buried in the hotel's bones. She climbed the stairs, her flashlight steady, and returned to her room. The diary's words echoed in her mind. They'll pay for what they did. As she settled into her chair, knitting again, she smiled faintly. People, she said to the empty room, are so predictable. The mystery was growing, like a scarf taking shape under her needles. Tomorrow she'd dig deeper into Clara, the hotel, and the people who wanted its secrets to stay buried.
Chapter 3. Whispers in the Fated Ballroom. Miss Jane Marple woke early, the morning light gray through the hotel's dusty windows. Her sleep had been light, stirred by the echo of last night's crash in the basement. Eddie's fall, pushed, he'd said, sat heavy in her thoughts. She didn't believe in invisible hands, but she knew real ones could hide behind clever tricks. Dressing in her usual neat cardigan and skirt, she tucked her knitting into her bag and headed downstairs. The Hollywood Tower Hotel felt quieter today, but not peaceful, like a held breath. In the lobby, Tom, the caretaker, was polishing the desk, his hands shaky. "Morning, ma'am," he said, barely looking up. "Heard about Eddie. He's okay, just bruised. Says he won't come back." Miss Marple nodded, her eyes kind but sharp. "Fear can be persuasive, Tom. I'd like to see the ballroom today." Tom's cloth paused. "Ballroom? It's dusty, ma'am. Nothing there but old junk." "All the same," she said, smiling. "Old junk tells stories." He led her down a wide hallway, its carpet worn thin. The ballroom doors were tall, carved with faded flowers, and creaked as Tom pushed them open. Inside, the room was grand but sad, like a forgotten party. Crystal chandeliers hung like spiderwebs, catching faint light. Mirrors lined one wall, cracked but gleaming. Tables were stacked in a corner, draped in sheets, and old posters curled on the floor, showing smiling faces from another time. Miss Marple stepped inside, her shoes echoing. She pictured the room alive, music, laughter, dresses swirling. The book she'd read yesterday mentioned this place, where Clara Beaumont, the actress, held her famous parties. Clara, whose folly the papers blamed for the 1939 tragedy. Miss Marple knelt by a poster, careful not to strain her knees. It showed Clara, all glamour and confidence, her eyes bold. "Hollywood's brightest star," it read. She made a note. Clara. Loved attention. Risky. As she stood, she heard voices, low, hurried, from behind a curtained alcove. She motioned for Tom to stay quiet and crept closer, her steps soft. Through a gap in the dusty velvet, she saw two men. One was Harold, her friend, looking tense. The other was a stranger, tall, slick-haired, in a sharp suit. His voice was sharp, too. "We can't keep stalling, Grayson. This hotel's a gold mine if we bulldoze it. Condos, shops, real money. But these ghost stories are scaring off my investors." Harold shook his head. "It's history, Vincent. We're restoring it, not tearing it down." Vincent scoffed. "History? It's a wreck. And that diary nonsense isn't helping. Someone's playing games, and it's costing me." Miss Marple's needles clicked softly in her bag, but she stayed still, listening. Vincent was a developer, she guessed, the kind who saw dollar signs and old bricks. Greed was a familiar motive, like Mr. Thompson in St. Mary Mead, who tried to cheat on his taxes and got caught. But games, that meant someone was behind the strange events, someone with a plan. The men left, and Miss Marple stepped into the alcove, pretending to admire a cracked mirror. Tom joined her, nervous. "That was Vincent Cole," he whispered. "Big shot, once the hotel gone." "Does he now?" she said, her voice calm. "And who else is on the renovation board?" Tom listed names: Harold, Vincent, a quiet woman named Leela Reed, and a few others. Miss Marple filed them away, her mind like a tidy drawer. She spent the morning in the ballroom, poking through dusty corners. She found a small photo under a table, a young girl, maybe 10, with Clara Beaumont's eyes. On the back, in faint pencil, "My darling Ellie, 1939. Clara's daughter. The book hadn't mentioned a child. She tucked the photo into her notebook. At noon, she sat in the lobby with a cup of tea she'd brewed herself. Tom's was too weak. The diary was on the desk again, despite being locked away last night. She opened it, finding a new entry. "The girl cries. The truth is buried." The ink was fresh, the words neat. She didn't flinch. Someone was writing this, maybe to scare, maybe to distract. But why mention a girl? That evening she joined Harold for dinner in the hotel's old dining room, now just a table and chairs among cobwebs. He looked tired, his actor's charm faded. "Jane, I'm sorry I dragged you here," he said, cutting a dry sandwich. "This place, it's worse than I thought." She sipped her tea, watching him. "Tell me about Clara Beaumont, Harold, the actress." He blinked, surprised. Clara? She was a star, wild, beautiful, always in the papers. They said she was in the elevator that night because she was drunk, showing off. Her folly, they called it, ruined the hotel's name. "And her daughter?" Miss Marple asked, her voice soft. "Daughter? I don't know about any daughter. The victims were Clara, a bellboy, a businessman, a singer, and some tourist. No kids." She nodded, but her mind was racing. The photo of Ellie, the diary's words, "The girl cries." Something didn't fit. She thought of St. Mary Mead, where a missing necklace turned out to be a sister's jealousy. Small clues, big truths. Later, alone in her room, she heard it again, the laugh, then a sob, faint through the walls. She put down her knitting and opened her window, listening. The sound came from the courtyard below, where shadows moved in the moonlight. She grabbed her flashlight and shawl, moving quietly downstairs. The courtyard was empty, just cracked tiles and overgrown vines. But as she stood there, a flicker caught her eye, a light in an upstairs window, blinking like a signal. She didn't call out. Instead, she went back inside, her steps careful. The light wasn't a ghost. It was a bulb, or a mirror, or a trick. Someone was playing with the hotel, like a child with a toy, but this toy had sharp edges. She thought of Vincent, wanting to bulldoze the place, of Tom, nervous and jumpy, of Harold, worried, but hiding something, and Ellie, the girl in the photo, tied to Clara's story. Back in her room, she opened her notebook and wrote, "Ellie, 1939, Clara's daughter. Diary mentioned girl. Vincent wants the hotel gone. Tricks to scare workers?" She smiled faintly, her needles clicking again. "People," she murmured, "think they're so clever." The ballroom had whispered its secrets today, and she was listening. Tomorrow, she'd find more about Clara, Ellie, and the shadows that danced in this tower of terror.
Chapter 4. The Folly of Hidden Greed. Miss Jane Marple sat in her small room at the Hollywood Tower Hotel, the morning light dim through the cracked window. Her knitting lay in her lap, but her mind was on the previous night, the flickering light in the courtyard, the diary's new words about a crying girl, and the photo of Ellie, Clara Beaumont's possible daughter. The hotel was full of shadows, not the ghostly kind, but the sort cast by people hiding things. She'd seen it before in St. Mary Mead, a shopkeeper's sly glance, a neighbor's too quick smile. Here, the stakes were higher, but the game was the same. She tucked her knitting into her bag and hid downstairs. The lobby was quiet, save for Tom, the caretaker, mopping the floor with nervous swipes. "Morning, ma'am," he mumbled, avoiding her eyes. "No new trouble yet?" "Yet," Miss Marple repeated, her voice gentle but sharp. "I'd like to see the diary again, Tom." He fetched it from the desk, his hands trembling. The leather-bound book felt heavier today, as if it carried more secrets. She opened it to the latest page. The ink was fresh, the script neat. The truth is in the wires. They lied then, they lie now. She closed it, her mind turning. Wires? That could mean the elevator, or something else. Electricity, tricks, maybe even money. In her village, wires would mean gossip, threads connecting people. Here, it felt more mechanical, deliberate. She spent the morning exploring the hotel's upper floors, her steps slow but sure. The hallways were dim, lined with locked doors and peeling paint. She found a service room, full of old tools and cables, some new, some rusted. A coil of wire caught her eye, modern, shiny, not like the dusty relics around it. Someone had been here recently, working on something. She made a note, new wire in service room. For what? At noon, she joined Harold for tea in the dining room, now just a table among cobwebs. He looked worn, his actor's charm faded. "Jane, you're poking into dangerous things," he said, stirring his cup. "Eddie's gone, and 2 more workers quit this morning. They're scared." "Fear is a tool, Harold," she said, sipping her tea. "Someone is using it. Tell me about Vincent Cole." Harold sighed. "Vincent is a developer, ruthless, wants to tear this place down for profit. He's got money tied up in the renovation, but I think he'd rather see it fail so he can buy the land cheap." Miss Marple nodded, her eyes on her teacup. "And Mrs. Leela Reed, the quiet woman on the board." Harold frowned. "Leela? She's Vincent's wife. Keeps to herself. Doesn't say much at meetings, but she's always watching." "Watching," Miss Marple repeated, her voice soft. "People who watch see more than they say." That afternoon she lingered in the lobby, pretending to read a tattered magazine. Leela Reed arrived, her heels clicking on the marble. She was younger than Miss Marple expected, with sharp eyes and a tight smile. She spoke to Tom in a low voice, handing him a small envelope. Tom pocketed it quickly, his face pale. Miss Marple's needles clicked softly in her bag. An envelope could mean anything: letters, money, instructions. In St. Mary Mead, Mrs. Price once bribed a baker to hide her affair. Small acts, big consequences. She followed Leela at a distance, her steps quiet. She went to the ballroom, where Vincent was pacing, talking on a phone.
We need to push harder, another scare, something big. They'll run, and we'll get this place for nothing." He didn't see Miss Marple, tucked behind a curtain, her ears sharp. Back in the lobby, she sat with the diary again, flipping through older pages. One entry, dated 1939, caught her eye. Clara's mistake was trusting him. The girl knows. The handwriting matched the newer entries, but the ink was faded, real. She thought of Ellie's photo, the girl with Clara's eyes. Clara's mistake? Trusting who? And why was someone mimicking the old diary now? That evening, the hotel felt heavier, the air thick with dust and secrets. Miss Marple was in her room, knitting, when a loud hum shook the walls. She hurried downstairs, flashlight in hand. The lobby was dark, but a glow came from the basement. She found Tom there, staring at the elevator shaft. The wrecked cage was lit up, its lights flickering like a heartbeat. It turned on," Tom stammered. "By itself." Miss Marple stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. The lights weren't ghostly, they were wired, new bulbs in old sockets. She spotted a cable running up the shaft, barely hidden. "Interesting, very interesting," she said. As Tom ran to fetch Harold, she examined the shaft. A small device, like a remote switch, was taped to the wall. Someone had rigged the elevator to move, to scare. She thought of Vincent's phone call, another scare, something big. But there was more. A scream echoed from the shaft, high and sharp like a girl's. It stopped abruptly, replaced by a low laugh. Miss Marple didn't flinch. She'd heard recordings before in St. Mary Mead, when a boy rigged a radio to prank his sister. Harold arrived, breathless. "Jane, what's happening?" "A performance," she said, her voice calm. "Someone wants us to believe in ghosts." She returned to her room, her mind piecing it together. Vincent wanted the hotel cheap. Leela was watching, maybe helping. Tom took an envelope. Money? Diary mentioned wires, and now wires are everywhere. New ones, rigged to scare. And Ellie, the girl tied to Clara's mistake. She opened her notebook and wrote, "Vincent plans scare." Leela involved, Tom bribed, Ellie's truth buried in 1939. As she knitted, a new sound came, a soft thump, like something falling. She looked out her window. In the courtyard, a shadow moved, quick and small, like a child running. She didn't chase it. Shadows were tricks too, and she was close to the truth. "Greed," she murmured, her needles clicking. Tomorrow she'd pull the threads tighter, unraveling the lies that held this tower's secrets.
Chapter 5. The Storm's Reckoning. Miss Jane Marple sat by her window, the Hollywood Tower Hotel quiet under a heavy evening sky. Her knitting needles clicked steadily, but her mind was on the diary's words. The truth is in the wires, and the rigged elevator from last night. Vincent Cole's plan to scare off investors was clear, with his wife Leela and possibly Tom, the caretaker, tangled in it. The photo of Ellie, Clara Beaumont's daughter, and the diary's mention of a crying girl pointed to something older, from 1939. In St. Mary Mead, secrets were small, a stolen pie, a hidden letter, but here they felt heavy, like stones in a wall about to crumble. She tucked her knitting away and went downstairs. The lobby was dim, the air thick with the smell of dust and rain coming. Tom was there, fidgeting with a rag, his eyes darting to the basement door. "Storm's brewing, ma'am," he said, his voice tight. "Bad one, like in 39.
Miss Marple smiled faintly. "Storms bring things to light, Tom. I'd like to see the elevator again." He paled but nodded, leading her to the basement. The wrecked elevator cage sat under flickering lights, the new wires she'd spotted last night still in place. She noticed a small speaker hidden in the corner, the kind that could mimic a girl's scream. "Clever," she murmured, her eyes sharp. Someone was staging a show, and she was ready to catch the actors. Back in the lobby, Harold arrived, his face lined with worry. "Jane, Vincent's pushing for a meeting tonight. Says we need to decide the hotel's fate. Workers are quitting left and right." "Let him push," she said, her voice calm. "I have a plan." She spent the afternoon preparing, her mind as tidy as her knitting bag. She asked Tom to fetch a small recorder from her suitcase, a gift from her nephew Raymond, useful for catching village gossip. She hid it in the elevator shaft, tucked behind a gear, set to record any voices. If Vincent or his helpers came tonight, I'd have proof. She also found an old mirror in the ballroom, small enough to carry, and propped it near the shaft to catch reflections. In St. Mary Mead, a mirror once showed a thief sneaking into a shed. Tricks worked both ways. As night fell, the sky growled, clouds dark and heavy. The hotel felt alive, creaking like an old ship. Miss Marple sat in the lobby, pretending to read, her knitting in her lap. Harold arrived, with Leela, both tense. Harold followed, looking uneasy. "We're meeting in the ballroom," Vincent snapped. "This place is a money pit. Time to end it." Miss Marple followed at a distance, her steps soft. The ballroom was lit by a single lamp, casting shadows on the cracked mirrors. Vincent paced, his voice loud. "The ghost stories are too much. Investors are out. We bulldoze it, build condos, and cash in." Leela nodded, her eyes cold. "The workers won't stay. Another scare tonight should finish it." Miss Marple slipped into the basement, her flashlight dim. The storm outside roared, thunder shaking the walls. She hid behind a pile of crates, her mirror angled to see the elevator shaft. Soon she heard footsteps, 2 sets, heavy and light. Vincent's voice echoed. "Set the lights and speaker, Tom. Make it loud. Scream, then laughter. They'll run." Tom's voice was shaky. "I don't like this, Mr. Cole. It's too much." "Do it," Vincent growled, "or you're out of a job." Miss Marple's recorder hummed softly, catching every word. She peered through the mirror, seeing Vincent adjust the speaker, while Tom rigged a wire to flicker the lights. The elevator hummed, its cage jerking like it was alive. A scream blasted from the speaker, high like a girl's, followed by a chilling laughter. The storm outside added thunder, perfect for their trick. She stepped out, her flashlight bright. "Good evening, gentlemen," she said, her voice steady. Vincent froze, his face pale. Tom dropped a wire, his hands shaking. "A fine performance," she continued, "but not quite ghostly." Vincent recovered, sneering. "Old lady, you're meddling. This hotel's done." Miss Marple smiled. "I think not. Your recorder will tell the police a different story." Tom bolted for the stairs, but Harold appeared, blocking the way. "Jane, what's going on?" he asked, confused. "A scheme," she said, holding up her mirror to show the rigged wires. "Mr. Cole wants the hotel cheap. Scares to drive out investors. But there's more, isn't there? Something about 1939. Vincent laughed, but it was forced. "You're dreaming. It's just business." Leela appeared, her eyes wide. "Vincent, stop talking." Miss Marple ignored her, pulling the diary from her bag. "This mentions a girl, Ellie, Clara Beaumont's daughter. And a mistake. I found records today in the library. Clara wasn't drunk that night. She was meeting someone, a man who worked for your grandfather, Vincent. He owned the hotel then. The elevator was rigged, wasn't it, for insurance money? Clara and the others died because of greed. Vincent's face twisted. You can't prove that, he said. The diary can, she said. Old pages, real ink. Your grandfather wrote it, confessing. Someone's been adding new pages to scare people, but the truth was there all along. Tom broke, his voice cracking. I found the diary months ago. Vincent paid me to keep quiet, to write new pages. He said it would make the hotel fail, so he could buy it. Leela grabbed Vincent's arm. We're leaving. No, Harold said, stepping forward. The police are on their way. Thunder roared as Miss Marple stood firm, her flashlight steady. The elevator lights flickered one last time, then went dark. The speaker was silent. The storm outside raged, but inside the truth was clear. Vincent's greed, like his grandfather's, had unraveled. Ellie's photo, tucked in her notebook, felt lighter now, as if the girl's cry had finally been heard.
Chapter 6. Tea and Triumph. The morning after the storm broke over the Hollywood Tower Hotel, the air felt lighter, as if the old building had exhaled a long-held breath. Miss Jane Marple sat in the lobby, her knitting needles clicking softly, a steaming cup of tea on the table beside her. The marble floor gleamed under the sunlight, streaming through freshly cleaned windows. The diary, now in police hands, lay silent, its secrets spilled. Vincent Cole and his wife Lila were gone, arrested at dawn, their scheme to scare off investors exposed. Tom, the caretaker, had confessed everything, his nervous hands finally still as he told the police about the bribes and rigged tricks. Miss Marple sipped her tea, brewed just right, and looked at Harold Grayson, who sat across from her. His face, once lined with worry, was softer now, though his eyes still held a flicker of disbelief. "Jane," he said, shaking his head, "you've done it again. I thought this place was cursed, but it was just people." She smiled, her needles pausing. "It's always people, Harold. Ghosts are stories we tell to hide our own follies. Greed, fear, lies, they make the shadows move." Harold leaned back, rubbing his temples. Vincent's grandfather, rigging the elevator in 39 for insurance money? And Clara Beaumont caught in it with those poor souls? It's awful. Miss Marple nodded, her eyes on her knitting. Awful, yes, but not new. In St. Mary Mead, I've seen greed ruin families over a few pounds. Here, it was a hotel, but the heart's the same. Vincent thought he could repeat his grandfather's game, scare the workers, buy the land cheap. He didn't count on a diary telling the truth. The police had taken the diary, its old pages proving Clara's death wasn't her fault. The 1939 entries, written by Vincent's grandfather, confessed to tampering with the elevator for an insurance payout, expecting it to fail empty. Clara, her bellhop friend, a businessman, a singer, and a tourist were just unlucky, caught in the wrong place when lightning struck. Ellie, Clara's daughter, wasn't in the elevator. She'd been sent away, but her photo and the diary's words kept her tied to the tragedy. The new entries, forged by Tom under Vincent's orders, were meant to fuel the ghost stories, but they only led Miss Marple to the truth. She'd found the final clue that morning in the hotel's dusty records room. A faded letter, tucked in a file, confirmed Ellie had lived, raised by a relative after Clara's death. The diary's crying girl was a memory, not a ghost, and Vincent's tricks, speakers, wires, flickering lights, were just a cruel echo of that old pain. Miss Marple had handed the letter to the police, ensuring Ellie's story was told. Now the hotel buzzed with new energy. Workers returned, no longer scared, hammering and painting under Tom's quiet supervision. He'd been spared arrest, his confession earning him a chance to make things right. The renovation would go on, the Hollywood Tower Hotel set to shine again, its dark past laid bare. Harold poured more tea,
his hand steadier. "Jane, you're a marvel. How did you know?" She chuckled, her needles clicking again. "I listen, Harold. People talk, through words, looks, even silence. Like Mrs. Price in my village, who hid her debts but couldn't hide her frown. Vincent's greed was loud, Lila's watchfulness louder. Tom's nerves gave them away." "And the diary?" he asked. "A story within a story," she said. "The old pages were honest. The new ones were a lie to hide a bigger lie. But lies unravel, always." Harold smiled, real warmth in it now. "You should stay, Jane. See the hotel when it's done." She shook her head, folding her knitting. "My roses need me, Harold, and Saint Mary Mead has its own puzzles, small but sharp. But I'll visit, perhaps, for a proper cup of tea." They laughed, the sound echoing in the lobby. Outside, the courtyard was bright, no shadows darting in the corners. The elevator shaft, once a place of fear, was just metal and wire, its secrets stripped away. Miss Marple packed her small suitcase, her teacup wrapped in a shawl, her notebook full of neat clues. Vincent's plan, Lila's silence, Tom's bribe, Ellie's truth, 1939. As she boarded the car to the station, Harold waved, his actor's charm back. "Jane, you've conquered this tower's terror." She smiled, her eyes twinkling. "Folly isn't conquered, Harold. It's outwitted with a bit of wisdom and a lot of listening." The car pulled away, the hotel shrinking behind her. She thought of St. Mary Mead, its quiet streets and nosy neighbors. Another mystery would be waiting. A missing cat, a stolen recipe, something small but human. She opened her knitting bag, her needles ready, and felt a spark. The tower was done, but her next puzzle was just beginning.